Okay, in this video we will continue the beginner's guide to SDL2 and COBOL. So if you're just joining this video, you're going to need to go to github.com programming rainbow beginner's guide to SDL2 and COBOL. You're going to need to clone that repository. And in that repository, since this is the 8th video, we will be continuing on with the code from the 7th video. So you're going to want to take the code from the 7th video, the file there, and you're going to want to copy it into the source directory to follow along with this. So I'll show you where we ended off in the 7th video. We had, let's build it and run it. We have the text moving around the screen, bouncing off the walls. We have our mascot that we're able to control with both the arrow keys and the ASWD keys. All works well, and we can change the background color with the space bar. And we have the title up here called Moving Text that we forgot to change. It should be sprite, actually, or player sprite, but we'll remember it this time. So in this video, we're going to work with the sound and the sound effects and probably the music as well. So we're going to target both of those at the same time. So let's talk about the sound. So this is going to be another module for loading sound, and we're going to use mix init. I'm just going to cover a couple of them real quick before we dive into the code. So we're going to use mix init to load the module. We're going to use mix quit to shut the module down. But unlike the other modules, we're actually going to need to open an audio as well. So we're going to use mix open audio to open an audio and mix close audio to close it. That's before we even load an actual audio file, which would be mix load wave. So let's work on loading mix and opening audio and closing it. Let's do that first. Okay, so back into the code, and let's, before we forget again, let's change the title up here. The last video actually should have said sprite, player sprite, but that's okay that we missed it that time. We'll change it for this one, and we'll call this one sound and music. Or we can go sound effects, and we'll just do sound and music. So we have sound and music, and then we will make it for the title, for the window title as well. And then right at the very bottom, we want to change it down here as well. It's getting to be a long file for COBOL, but that's okay. Okay, so we have the title changed. Now we're going to be in the SDL initialize SDL section right here. This is the initialize, and I'm going to put it above the SDL keyboard state. I'm just going to leave that as the last item there. So let's look at this one real quick. This mix init, this is very much like the image module that we started up, where we're going to put a flag in it and we're going to get a flag out of it, and then we're going to compare those. So it has a flag and it's returning a flag. So we will need to set the flag. And the flag that we're using specifically for this one is the mix init aug, because all the audio files that I'm using for both sound effects and the music are of type aug. So we're going to need that flag. We'll need to create that flag, and then we will basically just use the one that we were using for the image, and we'll just modify it for this. So let me just double check. There it is. So mix aug is actually just 16. So if we go up here, we got SDL init everything. That was for the SDL module. We have an image init PNG. That's for the image. There was nothing for the TTF module, but for the sound module, it's going to be very much like this one, actually. I'm just going to take this. Oops. This one is mix init, and then OGG. And the number that we're using, and again, you would need to look in the SDL underscore mixer.h file to find the pound define that is actually setting this. But for this one, it's 16. So I can just tell you right there what that is. And while we're here setting these up, I'm going to add in a couple more flags that we're going to use when we open the audio, since we're already here in this section. And binary ints, yeah. I'm just going to grab that one again. Oops. I'm going to grab this one again, and I'm going to need it 3 more times. Okay, so what these are going to be, these are going to be mixed defaults that I'm going to use for the frequency. You're going to see them later. I'm just going to set them up now while we're here, but it's going to be mixed default frequency, mixed default format, and mixed default channels. So that's default frequency. That one, and this one will be default format. And I'll explain these two in a minute. Channels. So the numbers for these, and again, they will be in that same header file. Everything for the mixer module, I believe, is in one header file, and it's SDL underscore mixer.h. So the frequency default is 44100, and that might look familiar. That's a lot of the audio is either 44,100 or 48,000. So that is what their default is set for. And this one, the flag for the type of format, we'll discuss this, is just 32784. 784. Hopefully that's right. 32784. Yeah. And then this one, the channels, this is talking about mono or stereo for channels, and we'll put 2, so that'll give us stereo audio. We're just putting those in. We will talk about these later. But now we can go down and use the OGG that we created. So again, the way this one is being initialized is exactly the way that the image was earlier in an earlier video. So this image initialization and the checking of it is exactly the same. So I'm going to just grab that one. And right there. So this one is mix. Tab gets me, or the caps lock key messes up my key shortcuts. So we got mix init, and the flag is going to be mix init OGG. And it's returning the return value, and now we need to make sure that the return value is the same as the mix init OGG. Okay, and I've messed this up right here, and let's talk about this. If we look at all of the modules used for SDL, usually they start with 3 capital letters, whether it's SDL or it's TTF or it's image. It's 3 letters that are all capitalized, but the mixer module actually uses a capital M and then a lowercase I and X, so it's mix. And for those flags, it is all capitalized. You know, these are all capitalized here. But for the function calls, it is capital M and then lowercase ix. So I did this one wrong right here. It should be capital M and then a smaller I and an X. So that is how we initialize the mixer. And then we're going to shut the mixer down the same way that we shut all the other modules down. It's just mix quit. And we're doing it in reverse order. So since it's the last thing we initialized, it's going to be the first thing that we close down. So again, it's capital M and then lowercase ix. So it'll be mix quit, and that'll take care of that. So that is initializing the mixer and shutting it down. So let's make sure that that works before we open the audio. Okay, I've messed something up. What is this? An 18? Maybe it was a punctuation. Let's find out. It's an 18 right here. Oh, this is not right. Should be an underscore right there. Okay. There we go. And okay, so I think that worked. So now let's talk about the audio. So we've initialized the mix module, but we need to open up like an, I don't know, it's like an audio device. We need to basically open up whatever device we're using for our audio. So I'm going to close these down since I have so many tabs open here. So open the default audio device for playback. This is what we need to do next. So it takes some parameters. It takes a frequency, it takes a format, and it takes a channel. The frequency is the hertz. The format is actually the hardware format. Like, is it 16 or 32-bit? Is it Little Indian? The different style of it. I'm not really going to discuss that too much here. I'm going to use the internal default. It's not mentioned on this web page, but it is mentioned inside of the, see, here's the audio formats right here, the different ones. And what I'm going to use is there is a mixed default that is set in the header file, and a lot of other people use it, but for some reason it's not mentioned on this page. So those were the defaults I was setting earlier. So the frequency is going to be 41-100. The default format, I cannot remember what it is. I think it's a 16-bit. One of the 16 bits. I can't remember if it's the signed or the unsigned. But again, that would be something if you really want to know about it. But I'm just going to use the safe default. And then we have the channels, and there's two different types of channels when you're dealing with the SDL audio. There's the channels as in left, right, or 5.1, or all of that stuff, how many audio channels you have. And then there's something else that they call channels, which is how many sound effects it can play at one time. Those are on channels as well, but it's a different, even though it's the same word, they mean something else. So this channels right here is your mono, your stereo, your, if you have 5.1 sound. I'm using the safe default again, which is stereo. And then we have this chunk size right here. This one deals with how much the audio device chunk size is the number of sample frames, one sample frame for mono, 2 for stereo frequency, that are fed to the device at once to lower the number. So this is basically it needs so much of how many cycles to deal with the audio. And if you lower this too much, you get information dropout and you'll get crackling in your audio. So if you kind of lower this down, you keep making it smaller and smaller, say use 512 or 256 or something like that, or 128 or whatever. If your information, your audio information cannot be dealt with in that time frame, it gets dropped and it'll cause your speakers to crackle. But if you make the number bigger and bigger and bigger, you actually have more cycles before the sound is dealt with and you have a delay in your sound. So you want it to be big enough where it's comfortable for your audio to be played, but not too big where you have latency that you can notice. So again, I'm going to use a kind of a default. I'm not going to go with the 2048. I'm going to go with the 1024. But if you are experiencing crackling and you think that's what it is, you could try increasing the sound. But if you try decreasing it, you will definitely hear it when it happens. It will be very noticeable. But I'm using the safe default. I'm using 1024. I think you can kind of notice a delay with the 2048 one. But it depends on your machine and everything else, but it's a safe default. So that's what I'm using. I'm using those 3 defaults that we created above, and then there isn't a default for the chunk size, so I'm just going to put it in 1024. And the way that we close it is by using mix close audio. And this should be the last thing that you do before you actually quit the mixer, before you do mix quit. So this is going to happen right before mix quit, and there's no parameters in or out on this one. So let's create this right here. And this is returning 0 on success or -1 on failure. So we will check this, and yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a 0 to come back, meaning it's all good. Go back down into initialize. Where are we at? We should be. Is this load? I've lost initialize. There's load media, so here's initialize. And I'll put it right there. Okay, I'm just checking YouTube. Okay, I'm just looking at the two streams. So we're going to call. We'll put our function in. And then we need to, I'm going to believe it's by value. Just get to my. Not here. It should be. Not sure where I put it. Oh, okay. I see what I've done here. So I've put it, and I should do it with this as well. I've put this in the wrong spot. I should have put this where I'm initializing modules, not where I've created the texture and stuff. So I'm just going to move it up this stack right here towards the higher here, where I'm initializing the modules. So here I'm initializing TTF. So here's SDL, here's image, here's TTF, and before I start creating a window, I'm going to initialize the sound and then open the audio device. Okay, so I just moved it up the stack to right below the last thing I initialized, which is the TTF module. So here, and then we're going to go by value. We're going to be using by value, and the first one is that mix default frequency. And if you were working with SDL in C or C++, it would be exactly the way I'm writing it here with this mixed default frequency. But it would be defined for you already in the header file. So by value, and this one is format, mix format. And then the next one is the mix channels. And then we need the by value 1024. That is for our, I don't know what you would call it, the kind of how many cycles of buffer you have for your audio. And then returning. This was going to be return value. Okay, and then we need to check it. And we're going to be checking if this is returning as 0 or not a 0 actually. If it's 0, it's good. If it's not a 0, we have to take care of the failure. So I'm just grabbing one of those up there that check for 0. If it's not equal to 0, something went wrong. And we're going to say error opening audio. And also we need to change the other above that I forgot to. So this one's error opening audio. And this one up here under the mix initialize, we should have changed this right here to error initializing SDL mixer is what this module is called. And if you want to read the header file, it's .h. Okay, so that is opening the mixer. And closing the mixer is basically just like quitting other things. It's it's just calling the function. It's a void function, and it has no parameters. So where we're closing everything down here, and I'm going to put it after everything. So I'm not putting it before we're freeing all this memory. I'm going to put it right before I start closing down modules. So it's going to be just like this, except this one is mix close audio, I believe. Let's double check. Mix close audio. So mix close audio, we're just capturing the value, though we're not using it. That's fine. So let's make sure that that works so that we get audio opening and closing and there was no mistakes made. Okay, cool. So let's get rid of these tabs. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be loading our sound effects. So we have two things going on here. We have sound effects and we have music. The music plays just one music file as music, and that's meant that it's on its own kind of channel and it just can play indefinitely if you put it on repeat. Whereas an effect is you're meant to be able to play multiple, and we can actually play up to 8 of them simultaneously before no more can be stacked, before one ends. So if we have an audio that is actually being played, we could play another one and another one up to 8 before we have to wait for one of the audios to finish before playing another one. So that's going to be loaded with mix load wave, and we're not actually using a wave file, we're using an OGG file, but the name of the function is still mix load wave. So this loads the file from, it takes the string to the file, it loads it, and it returns a mix chunk on the heap. And this, we're going to check it like any of our other heap allocated stuff with null. If it's null, then it has failed. So we are also going to load in a little bit here. We're going to load a music. And this is mix music. We're going to load one of these. So since I need to make the pointer for the sound, I'm going to make all 3 pointers. I'm going to make 2 sound pointers and 1 music pointer at the same time, just so we don't have to go up later on and make it again. So where our pointers are, I'm just going to grab one of these. And then okay. So let's look at the sounds. I believe I just call it music and then SDL sound and COBOL sound. Yes. So one of them is going to be COBOL sound. Will be the name of the sound file. And then the other one will be SDL sound. And then music. Okay, and what these are is over here in sound folder, we have COBOL and SDL. And those are just somebody saying COBOL and somebody saying SDL. It's just a spoken voice for the word. And then in music, we have the free software song from Richard Stallman, and this is the 8-bit version. I think it's originally from Moo Gnu, maybe, or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, so these are the 3 sounds that we'll be dealing with. But we're going to do the sound effects first. I'm just creating those pointers, so they're already there. Okay, so let's load something. We'll go down to load, or we'll look at the load function. So we have mix load wave. We need the name of the file, and it returns the chunk. Yes. So in load media, at the bottom, looking, I might just take one of these right here, repurpose it down here. We're still in the load media, yes. So we're going to go with the function called mix load wave, and the wave is all capitalized, so it's mix like that, and then load, and then wave is capitalized. And we're not using the render. And the name of our file that we're loading is in sounds, yeah, with an S. And it's, let's work with COBOL, I guess. COBOL.og. I'll just tab this back in. And so it's going to be COBOL sound was the pointer we created. So that's returning COBOL sound, so we need to check COBOL sound, see if it's null. And we will say that loading chunk, because that's what this is. This is a mixed chunk file. So error loading chunk, yes. And now I'm just going to copy this whole thing and do it again because we're loading two audio files. We're loading the SDL as well. So that's the same function, but this one is SDL. And it's the SDL sound. And this one again, SDL. Okay, and it's still error loading chunk. So the way that we unload them, we're loading them with mix, but before we unload them, we would unload them with mix free chunk. But before we do that, I actually want to make sure that these sounds are not being played at all. So I want to make sure these sounds are stopped. So I'm going to use mix halt channels. It's just channel, sorry. And if you add in a -1 here, it halts all channels. So we could pick a specific channel, but we're actually not going to keep track of channels. So when we go to play a channel, a sound on a, remember there's 8 channels that we can play it on. And this is not the stereo left and right channel. This is different. But we have those 8 channels that we can play a sound effect on. We could actually pick different channels to play a sound effect on. And we could capture back what channel it was on and keep track of that and everything else. And I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to tell it to play on whatever's the first available channel. And if it runs out of channels, the sound just won't play. And if there is space again in channels, the sound will play if it's initialized, if it's meant to play again. And so I'm not going to keep track of channels at all because they're not really important to this game. That you would need a very complicated setup for that. So I could tell a specific channel to halt. But I just want to make all channels stop playing before I release the memory for those audio sound effects. And you don't strictly have to do this, but I think this is the best practice to do this. So we're going to do that. And we're going to put this above all the stuff that we're releasing. So in our cleanup, so I know at the bottom here, we're turning off the modules because everything's already been freed. And right before that, we are turning off or closing the audio before we release. But actually above all of this stuff, before we do anything, I'm going to first tell all the channels to halt. So if any audio sound effect is playing, it's going to stop. Let's go down again. Let's see here. Get in there, right there. So we're just using by value -1, and then we're just returning the value, but we're not doing anything with it. I just wanted to make sure I was typing it all in right. Oops, that was not supposed to happen. Why are you doing that? Oh, because I have caps lock on. Okay. -1. No, I don't want that. Then we'll say returning And that will just be our standard return value. Then we'll do end call. So we're going to halt all music. We're passing in -1. That's going to halt everything. Now let's look at how we free music. So we free it with a mix free chunk. And I know that we opened we loaded the music with mix load wave. And then now it's mix free chunk. They just don't match up on the mix one. It doesn't do it with the music either. So we're just passing in the pointer, kind of the way we've done everything else. So I'm just going to grab one of those, and it's the function is mix free chunk. So right here, it's very much like this. So it's going to be mix free chunk. And we're passing in it doesn't matter if it's the COBOL or the SDL one. So we'll say SDL sound, turn value, and then I'm just going to do it again for the COBOL one. And this one will be COBOL. Okay. So I'm just going to run this to make sure we're turning on the module, opening the audio, loading the sound, and then undoing all that. And no spelling mistakes, so that's good. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So we've dealt with freeing the chunk. So now the way we play an audio effect is we use mix play channel. And we can specify the channel, and I believe we can just put -1. Where's it? Channel, new chunk. Yeah. So we're going to use -1 for the channel. So it's just going to, whatever is the first available channel, if channel 3 is available, it'll play on channel 3. And this is going to return what channel it played on. And again, I actually don't care what channel it played on. So, and you can also check this for error if it's a -1. And again, this is happening in the game loop, and I don't want to know if it errored, because what would happen is say you played a sound effect 7 times, then you go play 8 times, then you go play it 9 times. It doesn't play, and if you were checking this for error, your game would shut down. And we don't want that to happen. Just because the sound effect wasn't allowed to play, it'll just not play, and the game will continue on, So we're not going to check this for what channel it's on, or if it failed. We don't care. But we will capture it regardless. The channel, we're going to use -1. The chunk is the sound that we're playing. And then the loop is how many times you want the sound effect to loop. So we're going to use 0 because we want the sound to play just 1 time and no loop. So that is what we're going to use. And let's think about where we want this to play. So I want one of them to play when I press the space bar to change the color of the background. I want a sound to play. And I also want another sound to play every time the text bounces off the wall. So since that text says COBOL, let's make the space bar say SDL. So that's copied. We'll go in here. We'll go to the change color. Right here, change color. So when we're changing the color, why don't we also make it play a sound? So we could say call and we'll say using by value, and it's -1 for which channel we want to play. Really, it really wants me to do that, huh? Let me just get rid of this real quick. Okay. So it's by value, -1, and then by value, and we need the sound that we're playing. And so that's the pointer to the sound. So it's this one's going to be SDL sound. And then we need by value 0 because this is how many times we want the sound to repeat. And I want that, okay. And then we're going to be returning the return value, but we're not testing it. Okay, and that will be the end call. Okay, let me tab these in. So this should make the sound play every time that we press the space bar. We should hear someone saying SDL.
SDL, SDL, SDL,
Okay, so I'm going to press it right now and you hear it.
SDL,
And then I'm going to press it again.
SDL.
Okay, so that is easy enough. That's playing a sound. So why don't we make it play a sound every time that the COBOL text bounces off the wall? So we can just take this, since it's already the code to play that sound. And I think it's below it. Update text. So right in here inside the if statement, we can put it. But we need to remove the period from it because it's inside of a sentence already. So we have to make sure that there's no period on this call right here. Or we could, this is what I'm going to do. I believe I did this before. We could put this inside of its own. Yeah, I'm gonna put it inside of its own procedure to make it a little cleaner and easier. So let's undo that. Okay, and this is, yeah. So right below update sprite, we'll just make two procedures. We'll say play SDL, SDL sound. Yeah. And I'll make another one called play COBOL sound. Then we can just paste that in. We can paste this one in. Okay, I'm just going to put an end on these or an exit. And on this one. Okay, so we have these two. Play SDL sound, and this one's SDL. This one needs to be COBOL. Okay, so we can just call these now. The first place we did it was inside the change, this one right here. So we could just say perform That's not what I wanted. I wish it didn't autocomplete like that. Perform, this one's SDL, so we could say play SDL sound, period. There we go. And then in here, we can do a very similar. We can just say play or perform play COBOL sound. And there's no period in here because this is inside the sentence. I'm just going to copy this whole line. And I'm going to put it here after the compute. And here. Okay, so that's for each direction. So when it bounces off the X, or the X over here, it's going to play. When it bounces off the X over here, the Y up here, and the Y down here, it's going to play COBOL each time because that is the COBOL word moving around the screen. And then every time we hit spacebar, it's going to say SDL. So I'm going to save that. So I'm going to monitor this. I hear it a little bit delayed because I'm hearing it from the video feed. I'm going to tell you when I press the spacebar, and then you're going to see when COBOL bounces. Okay.
COBOL, 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 COBOL.
Okay, I'm going to press the spacebar.
SDL, COBOL,
I'm going to press it
SDL,
again.
COBOL,
Press it one more
SDL,
time.
COBOL, 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 COBOL.
And there's something I noticed here.
SDL, COBOL.
Yeah. So all the sounds work just fine, but one thing I noticed is that the colors did not change for the when I press spacebar anymore. So let's go to have a look at that. Something has gone wrong. So the change color, not sure what, so I have a punctuation here in all my sentences. Have it here, have it here. I'm going to move this down.
SDL, COBOL.
Okay, what have I done here? I'm going to comment this out.
SDL.
Okay. But we're getting inside of this procedure. So, oh, okay. I'm missing the code here for the. It must have happened earlier when I was having problems with the caps lock and it was putting funky code in there. But I'm actually missing the whole call for setting the render color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up far enough until I get it, and then I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to undo until I get back to the code. I'm going to copy that code, and then I'm going to re-undo forward. If that makes sense, because I've made a mistake here. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this real quick, and then I'm going to re-undo back to my modern, the most modern version of the code, and mix. Yeah, play. Oh, I deleted the wrong one. I left this in, and I see what I did. Yep, this makes sense now. So I deleted this one instead. I should have deleted this one. I didn't realize, yeah. Okay, so I have this, and this I can uncomment.
SDL,
okay.
COBOL, 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 SDL, COBOL, COBOL, SDL, COBOL, COBOL,
Okay.
COBOL, SDL.
Okay. So it's all doing what it's supposed to do now. So that is the sound effects. We had a little mess up there. That's all the sound effects. Let's talk about playing music now. So this is the playing the channel. Okay, now we have mix load muse. Now mix load muse loads a heap allocated mix music, and then we're gonna halt it before we free it. So mix free music is the one that frees it, and it's just like all the other things that we free from SDL. We just put in the pointer and it returns a void. And mix halt music is returns 0 regardless, so it's a bit weird, but it's literally, we're just calling the function again. We're not passing anything into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to load the music, and then we're going to throw the halt up on top of the exit, the cleanup and exit procedure, and then we're going to free it below it. So like what we did with the chunk. So let's load the music. Mix load music. It's very similar to the chunk one, except the name, but it's returning a different type, and the call is okay. So I'm going to go to the load. Is it here? Are we in the load media? SDL sound, yes. So right here, it's very similar to this one. Okay, so this one is going to be mix load muse, and that's capital MUS. Okay, and we're going to be loading this from the music folder, and it's called Free Software Song 8-bit, and it's also an OGG file. I believe that is spelled correctly. And it's the music pointer that we created before. And we're checking that pointer. We'll say error loading music this time, because this is the type is SDL music. So that is how we load the music. So freeing the music is clean up an error. So I'm going to do the same thing with the music. I'm going to halt the music first. I'm just going to copy this. And it's mix halt music. Let's just double check. Halt music, yes. And there's no parameters that we're putting in. And then it's free music is the way we free it. So we have halt music, and we don't need to say value 1, and we don't need to say using, because we're not using anything by value. But we will capture the return value, but we're not testing it. So we are basically halting the music, halting the channels, and then right here where we start freeing the resources, I'm going to free the music. And it's mix free music. And it's just called music. So that loads and unloads our music file. But we're not playing the music file yet. So, wait, did I free music? Play music, yeah, here it is. So I'm going to get rid of these. Alt music, free music. So the way we're gonna, so we have mixed play music, and what this does is we are going to check this. This is not going to happen inside of the game loop the way the chunks, the way the sound effects were happening. Those happen inside of the game loop, where every time some action occurs that we're telling it to play a music and we don't check on the failure because we don't care, because if it does fail, it's okay. The next time we'll probably play. But the playing of the music, we do actually care. We're going to start playing the music before the actual game loop starts, and then the music is just going to keep playing. And so we actually care if this is a little bit more major. So this is returning 0 on success or -1 on error. So we are going to capture and check that. We are sending in the pointer to the music. And this one is an int on how many loops, and it's not specified here. And I'm pretty sure in the header file there is some macro that says like loop infinite times or something like that, but it's actually just -1. So I'm not sure why it's not listed here, either of that, but if you just put -1 here, or whatever the macro equivalent is, it will just infinitely loop, so it'll play the song over and over again. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to play our song infinite times, and we're going to check to see if it errors. And we're going to call this function right before our game loop starts. So that would be right up before the inside the main procedure. That's not the main procedure. It's all the way here. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna put it right down below where we did the playing of the. We're gonna make its own procedure. So right here, we'll just do that. And we'll call this play music. And every time that the caps lock button messes my code up so many times. Okay, so this one we are passing in our pointer to our music, and we're passing in the -1 for our infinite. Value, and we have the pointer, which is just called music. And then we have value and -1. And then we are returning, and we're going to check this return too as well. So we're in call, but we're going to check it right away, and we're checking if it's -1, or sorry, if it's not 0. So we'll just grab something else that checks if it's not 0. Right here, this looks good. So if the return value is not equal to 0, then whenever the caps lock is on, my keys do different things, and I don't normally have the caps lock on, but because it's COBOL, it's been on. So we have error playing music. And we'll put an exit on this. Again. Okay, so let's just see if we get some music playing. And we didn't, so we have unexpected end call. This is at 5:10, playing music, okay. It should be in call. Mix play music using by value music by value. Oh, returning. Return value. Okay.
COBOL, 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 COBOL.
Okay, I don't hear any
COBOL.
music, but the reason why is because we never performed the procedure. So we made the procedure, but up into the main procedure, right here, we need to actually call it. And it should be before this loop starts. So we'll say perform play music. Now we should hear music.
COBOL, COBOL, COBOL.
Okay, that's great. So now the music plays, but maybe you don't want to listen to the music, or maybe somebody gets tired of listening to the music. So we want a way to kind of stop the music, and instead of actually stopping the music, we're going to pause the music. So we can pause the music and we can resume the music very easily. And to make a latching switch, we can just check to see if the music is paused. So we're playing the music here. We have this function here, mix paused music. And this just tells us, it's the old C style Boolean, 0 or 1, if the music is paused. So if it's a 1, the music is paused, and if it's 0, it's not paused. So this will tell us if it's paused. So then we can use this other function, which almost looks the exact same, but this one is mix pause music, and this will make the music pause. And then mix resume music will make the music resume. So we can use this as like a latching, we can make this something that turns on or off. We are going to need another key. We're going to need to create another scan code key, which is going to be M. And we've already seen these before, so I won't go into depth about the scan key, but this is going to be something we're checking with the event loop. Because we don't want to know if it's down, we just want to know if an event has been pressed. So I'm going to just grab one of these. And it's going to be M. I'm not going to show, I've already showed the page so many times, so you can find the scan code page. But the specific one for this one is going to be 16. And this is not an indexing one, this is an event one, so it actually is 16. If you were indexing, you would need to change it to 17. But I'm actually using it in the event loop here. So that's going to be that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a procedure that latches, basically checks to see if it's paused. And there we go, pause music. So we'll make another procedure down here right below the play music. Right here. And we'll call it pause music. So pause music. And we will be checking it. What we're going to do is we're going to call the mix paused music function, and we're going to get that return value, and that's going to tell us if it's playing or not. So we'll say call. Okay, that's not what I wanted to happen at all. I just type it in. Pause music with a pause with a D, paused music. And this one is no value in, we're just returning something. So there's no using on this one. And we'll say returning. And then the return value. Okay, so that gets us our answer whether the music is paused or not. And now we can use some logic on what should we do with that answer. So we can say if return value is 0, then so if the return value is 0, that means the music is not paused, because it's going to be 1 if it's paused. So if it's not paused, it's playing right now, so that we need to pause it. So we'll just do a short call. And we'll say mix pause music. And we'll just capture the returning. I'm just going to kind of do this inline because there's enough room. I think there is. And end call. Yeah, there's enough room. Okay, so, and then we'll do an else. And on the else one, it's going to be a resume. So I'm just going to take the same thing. And this will be the end if. Right here will be the resume. So we have, we're checking to see if it's paused. If it's not paused, we're pausing it. If it is paused, we're going to resume playing of the music. Okay, I'm going to add an exit here. So that should give us our toggle, but now we need to perform this somewhere. So what we're going to do is use that M key when we're checking the events right here. We're going to add another when. SDL, we'll say M. will perform. Okay. Why? Just why does it do it to me? Okay, let's try this again. Yes, I have to turn the caps lock off to be able to delete something sometimes. So if this is, we're going to perform that pause, and that pause will take care of the logic of whether we should pause it or not, or resume it. So that will be, is it pause music? Pause music, and there's no period on this because it's inside this very long sentence right here. Okay, so I'm going to start the game up this time if it runs, and I'm going to pause it right away. So you should hear that pause right away, and then I'll unpause it after a number of seconds. Or I'll just close the window. Okay, so we have 528, we got an issue. 528. Oh, I think it's these punctuations right here. They should be only on the end. And both of them. Okay, we're getting closer. 530. I put another one here. Oh, no, it should be there. So let's just look at this. If returning is 0, then, yeah, we say call mix returning, return value end call, else. Okay, so else, not right. There we go. Okay.
SDL, COBOL, 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 COBOL.
Okay, I've paused the music.
COBOL.
Now I'm going to unpause the music.
COBOL, COBOL,
Okay,
COBOL.
pause again.
COBOL, COBOL, SDL, COBOL, SDL.
Okay,
COBOL.
everything looks good there. So let's just make sure we have our title and everything. I think we do. Yep, we do. So let's just cover what we've done real quick. So we have added in the mix init og. We added that one in, the constant in for a flag. And also these mix defaults, we added those in for opening the audio device. And we've added in the scan code M for using it with our pause. We have added in pointers for COBOL sound, SDL sound, and music sound. And I believe that's all the stuff added in there. So SDL, we have initialized SDL, initialized image, initialized TTF, and then we've initialized the mixer. And then we've opened the mixer audio, and we're checking both of those for failure. And then we're closing them. But the way we close them, is we're making sure we're halting all the music and we're halting all the channels. And then before we worry about freeing pointers, before the modules close, we're closing the audio device, and then we are quitting the mixer and closing everything else down in reverse order. And we are freeing up the music in the chunks. There's the music, there's the two chunks in reverse order that we're creating them. We created them up here. There's COBOL sound. Right there, COBOL sound. And there is SDL sound. And then there's the music. And those are in the music folder for the music and the sounds folder for the sound effects. Okay, and then we've created some new procedures for playing the sound effects and the music. So playing the sound, just -1 on first open channel. There is the pointer to the sound, and there is the loops. And the same for the COBOL sound. The music, it's just a pointer to the music, and then it's a -1 to play it in an infinite loop. It just plays forever. And we are checking the failure on that one. And that one we actually, up in the main procedure, we're playing the music right away before we ever get into the game loop. Inside of the game loop, in the check input is where the SDL audio is being played, and then in the update text is where the COBOL is being played. So when we see the check input here, where is it? Check input. When we change the color here, we are performing the play SDL sound. And when we update the text, each time we bounce off a wall, we're playing the COBOL sound. And we also, besides playing the sound, we have the toggle, where we're using a function to check if the music is paused. And if it's not paused, we're pausing it. And if it is paused, we're resuming it. So we get that toggle effect. Okay, I think that kind of wraps it up for this video. So thanks again for watching, and goodbye.